Hey guys, super interesting video on Wild Rift. So they're back with the patch notes 4.1a review, and obviously this is a minor patch being an A patch, but it's actually pretty exciting, especially for a minor patch. So anyways, let's go over it. The first kind of big thing that's happening is the new game mode Ultimate Spellbook. Now, why is this a really big thing? Well, firstly, it's a new game mode, which of course everyone is always excited about. Basically, it's one where instead of taking 2 summoner spells, you get 1 summoner spell and 1 like random ultimate that you can choose out of 3. So it leads to a lot of like interesting scenarios where I don't know, maybe you have like a Malphite who has a Yasuo ult, and then you can use both ults at the same time, kind of deal like those kind of like interesting fantasy scenarios where you can do 2 things by yourself. Yeah, so it's just a really interesting game mode, but I think the kind of real interesting thing about it is that they pretty much didn't say anything about it at all until it actually dropped. So if you guys weren't paying attention to leaks and stuff, you this would have like just came out of nowhere. But yeah, so Ultimate Spellbook is coming, and together with it, it's launching as the patch is out, which by the time you're watching this video should already be out. And there's an Ultimate Spellbook event that accompanies it, and at the same time, there's also an April Fool's event at the same time. So now let's get into the champion changes. First up, we have a nerf to AP Amumu. Now this is actually kind of surprising to me because I thought that tank Amumu with like the Searing Crown and like Sunfire Aegis build was the popular build now, but apparently a lot of people are still going AP, and I have seen like a top 50 AP Amumu when I was playing Legendary Ranked and matched up with him a couple of times as well. But yeah, so they're nerfing his AP ratio on his W, which is his Cry. Basically means that in late game it's gonna do a lot less damage, but early game is not gonna affect him too much, so his clear should still be fine. Overall, I think that this is fine because I think the tank build is way better now with the new tank itemization. Jin getting a 2-second cooldown buff on his W, just a really nice kind of buff for Jin. But at the end of the day, it doesn't make Jin move from the like position in the tier list that he's in now. Nautilus damage to monsters getting reduced by 25% on his E. And this is very warranted because his E did insane damage to monsters. Absolutely insane. He had an insane clear, especially like for a tank who doesn't do a lot of damage. But his E just like melted the monsters like instantly. So I think that this makes a lot of sense. We'll pull his clear speed down a little bit and put him in line with other junglers. But in terms of everything else, he should still be just as strong. Nunu apparently doesn't benefit much from the new tank items. I'm not so sure about that. But yeah, so apparently he doesn't benefit so much from the new tank items. I mean, I guess Searing Crown is not that good on him. He still goes Sunfire Aegis, etc. I guess you could go for like Amaranth later on, but yeah, apparently he doesn't benefit according to the devs. So they're buffing his health per level by 7 to make him a little bit more tanky, and also his heal ratio on his Q up by 1%. Overall, it's very minor buff, again not going to affect very much. But here they're partially reverting the Pyke buffs. So they basically, it's really weird because like I was watching N-Step's stream and he was saying that they still want Pyke to be a support, but they just decided to try out giving him wave clear. And one of the core reasons why this is the case is because even when you're playing support, it kind of sucks when your skills only do 25% damage against minions. Like even as a support, you want wave clear so you can like clear out waves and like help push or whatnot. So I guess that does make sense. But they buffed it to an extent where obviously he was gonna be a mid laner and a jungler. Like I don't think there was any doubt in anyone's mind that that would happen. So it's sort of like an experiment, and this is sort of the results of the experiment, which is that they didn't really like it. So now they're bringing the damage ratios back down, but they're not bringing it down to like 25% like what it was. So now it's going from his bonus skewer is going from 100 to 80 for minions and 110 to 90 for monsters, which I think does make a lot of sense. And his E damage to monsters is going back down to normal, which at the end of the day, these are very minor buffs compared, very minor nerfs compared to that huge buff that he got last patch. So his ult is now getting tuned more towards the support side, where he doesn't get any additional gold for solo kills. This makes a lot of sense. The goal he grants for assisting a teammate is now more, and as a result, the cap is up by 50, which of course balances out. And when your teammate kills someone when you are trying to ult them, basically you tried to ult, but but the guy died before you landed. Basically, the extra goal ratio is also gonna go up, and the cap is the same adjustment. So this definitely is trying to push Pike back into the support role where they clearly want him, but I have no idea why they gave him so much minion and monster damage. Excuse me. So next up we have Rammus. So the first thing here I'm gonna cover is they fixed the bug fix where he gets a lot of extra resistances when he built like Twin Guard and etc. So the interaction there, something went wrong in like the code, and he got a lot more resistances than he actually deserved. So that's why he was like really really strong last patch. So here's the very interesting change. His W's base damage is going up by 2 at all ranks. The percent armor boost is actually going down in compensation, of course. It's going down. Honestly, at lower ranks, it's not too much, but when you get to max rank, it's 15%, so scaling up the decrease. However, the W no longer reduces your movement speed by 30%. And if you ask me, I would trade my armor boost for having no reduction in movement speed, because last time one of the core problems of Rammus is you're meant to like roll in on roll/alt in. You activate your W and you taunt someone. So for that 1 second plus that they're hitting you, your W is active and they're taking the damage. And after your W is done, like they're gonna start running away. They're not gonna be attacking you for no good reason. So you're gonna have to like run after them and attack. Generally, you can get in like 1 or 2 attacks, and they're gonna be out of your range because you're slowed by 30%, and they might have speed ups or dashes or whatever, and you cannot catch them anymore. So now this, in my opinion, helps him to deal more damage to his opponents, and it just feels better to play. But at the end of the day, you're less tanky because you get less percent armor boost. So it's kind of a trade-off that, well, you don't really have a choice in because they did it for you, but it's kind of like an interesting trade-off. So I think that this change is pretty interesting. Now Varus, they gave a huge buff to AP Varus in the last patch, and they figured out that it helped him a little bit too much. So now they're tuning his AP ratio back down to 85. Last patch, remember, it went from 80% to 100. So now it's going back from 100 to 85%. So at the end of the day, still going to be a slight buff for AP net, but not as much. So Warwick, I think this is probably to help him in lane. So they gave a larger heal ratio in the early game, but at the late game it remains the same. So it's going to help his jungle clear to be more healthy as well. But his jungle clear was already very healthy. So I guess it's going to help his in lane sustain because they're kind of pushing him towards Baron lane. And Zeri copping another round of nerfs. As I said, after that round of huge nerfs, I still believe that Zeri was strong. And the fact that she's getting nerfs again kind of proves the fact that she is still strong. Her health per level is going down by 8. So at the end of the day, she's going to be a lot more squishy in the late game. The bonus AD on the ult is getting nerfed again from 25% to now 20% on the Chain Lightning. Again, another nerf to Zeri. This time a little bit more minor, but we'll see how it affects her. My personal belief is that if you're a good Zeri, it's still going to be a very, very strong champion. So I think these two changes are probably the most interesting and exciting changes of the patch, aside from the new game mode. The first one is Mantle of the 12th Hour kind of sucked as an item because it gave you 50 of each resistance, but the issue was that it was only like, I think, 400 or 500 gold less than Twin Guard, and Twin Guard gave you the exact same stat line, not exact same, it gave you this 5 extra of each resistance, and gave you that extra 30% of all resistances. So when you compare like the price differential to like how good the item really is, that small difference in cost is so much more value to go for Twin Guard than to go for Mantle. So no one was building Mantle aside from maybe Sion, because Sion had a lot of bonus health, and this kind of scales with health. But with this change, this changes the game completely, because a lot of the issue with Twin Guard is that a lot of the time you go for, nowadays you see people going for Twin Guard second or third item majority of the time. So plenty of the time, unless you're a Sunfire Aegis user, you don't actually get a lot of health. So you end up in a situation where you have a lot of resistances, but you don't have a lot of health, which is not very good for your overall tankiness, because you need to balance out health and resistances to have more effective HP. So Mantle giving health is pretty huge, because the first thing is that it doesn't directly compete with Twin Guard anymore, because it now gives you a lot less resistances, but it gives you health, which is a stat that you want. And secondly, Mantle, despite scaling off of health, now becomes a relatively good first item option, because like in the first item, what you want generally is like good stats. So like Sunfire Aegis gives you a ton of health, that kind of thing. That's why it's a very common like tank first item, and like supports a lot of times take like Zeke's convergence because it gives you health and resistances. So this is one of those cases where you get both a little bit of health and quite a good chunk of both resistances. So I think this could be a good first item. Could also be good for later in the game when you also need health. Like maybe after Twin Guard, you get even more of each stat and you get more health. So that's really interesting. So Sterak's Gauge is now can be used on ranged champions, and this was the change that excited me the most, like for obvious reasons because I'm an ADC main. So the first thought I had about this is that this is meant for Urgot, and they did actually say this was meant for Urgot because Urgot counts as a ranged champion. He is a ranged champion, but he's meant to be like a tanky Baron laner who kind of wants to build Steraks but wants to build Death Dance but has reduced value from it because he's ranged. And yeah, so this is definitely targeted at Urgot. But in terms of ADCs, who am I thinking of? My first thought is Samira. Samira has been an ADC that traditionally does very well in tank metas. Not because she's good at shredding tanks, but because she only has a 2-item core of Bloodthirster and IE. Then she can actually go for like Sterak's Gauge and Twin Guard to become so tanky that when she ults, no one can kill her or no one can stop her when she's ulting. That's my first thought. My next thought is Corki. Corki now goes for Manamune, Triforce into Riftmaker, and then he goes for like Twin Guard and like a flex last item. So now instead of having a flex last item, you could go into Twin Guard Sterak's, or you could go into Sterak's Twin Guard, both of which are really good. And then my next thought is even Zeri, because Zeri loves a shield, and with Sterak's, you get 400 HP, which is pretty huge for tankiness, and you get a huge shield that scales off your health, which you have 400 bonus health, so you're gonna get some kind of, big shield there. And Zeri loves a shield, which is why she goes Immortal Shield Bow, amongst other reasons in PC. But that shield is gonna help her survive and lifesteal back, because she will have Bloodthirster, of course, to lifesteal back, which could affect the fight. So my final thought is maybe Vayne. But my logic is that it's probably not very good on Vayne, because currently I know that there is a popular tank build on Vayne, like where you go like Triforce Broke into like Twin Guard and Warmox, but I tried out that build and I find that your damage is kind of gets hurt a lot by that build because you don't have enough attack speed. So I still believe that Vayne's core has to be Bork Wit's End to get that amount of attack speed. And my logic is if Vayne wants a shield, she can go for Phantom Dancer, which is what she goes for normally anyway. I don't see why you would want to trade attack speed for health. And the shield, I think, on Sterak should be bigger than Phantom Dancer. However, I think that trading attack speed for health may not necessarily be the best idea, unless you already have enough attack speed, which you might. So we'll have to see about Vayne. But I'm pretty sure that Samira, Zeri, and Corki are definitely going to be users of Sterak's Gauge. Zeri not in every match, but I think for now, Corki and Samira are probably in every match. So we'll see. Either ways, in terms of skins, we have Birdio, which already released like yesterday actually. I don't know why it says 30th of March here, but it released yesterday on the 29th, so that's weird. But anyways, on April 4th, we have the Cosmic skins, and we have 5 of the Cosmic skins, and that's pretty much it. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed this patch review. Thank you guys so much for watching, and goodbye.